was sharing with some folks at lunch. At Candler, I feel like I was really prepared theologically. I was really prepared for ministry, but I did not know anything about church planting, or even maybe church redevelopment, but church planting, no. This wasn't on the radar screen. So I was, again, graduated in 2000, so somewhat recently. I think that's changing. So my good friend and I, Chris Kuhn, were part of the same lectionary Bible study together on the North Shore of Chicago, and just became friends that way, and found ourselves sort of theologically resonant. I think we both identify as progressive, evangelical-ish, and so began becoming friends, and were, just liked each other and hung out. And then we were both of us at different churches, asking ourselves sort of what's next. Sort of late 30s, mid 30s for Chris, early 30s for me. And Bishop Jung was a new bishop in our conference, and the Congregational Development Officer, Martin Lee, had a thing called Institute for Congregational Development, which Chris and I signed up for, I think more to help think about redeveloping our churches. But what happened is Martin Lee invited all these church planters in to come share their stories. And I found myself just gobsmacked, just like I could not get enough of their stories. And I'm talking like lefty, loony, Unitarian church planter comes in, I'm like, that is awesome. Conservative Calvinist church planter comes in, I'm like, yes. Like they were speaking about something that I wanted. I just was, I said in my earlier testimony, I'm not someone who has experienced God waking me up in the middle of the night, but at that institute, which was like basically 2 days a month, an overnight, I would regularly fill pads of paper from their testimony and just ideas I had. And so Bishop Jung had his John Deere tractor in Illinois for sure, tilling the ground and just saying what he just said to you, if you have an idea, a passion, let's talk about it. And so Chris and I took him at his word, and began formulating a project proposal. And Urban Village began being worked on in the summer of 2009. Our kind of founding ethos was, could we be a church? Could we be a Wesleyan church? Sort of what I was saying earlier, a variegated church. Diana Butler Bass says, why is it that the choice between churches these days so often seems to be the choice between intelligence on ice and ignorance on fire? And that's a little snarky, but it hit me. So why is it that so many of our churches have we would find this, and not just our churches, but churches in general in America, and we found this, we go to churches and there'd be a clear sense of Southern Baptist youth revival. Something's going on here. The Holy Spirit is here. People are giving their lives for Jesus. People are aware of what their mission is. They're willing to go out and evangelize and tell their friends because something's happening. I'm like, damn, something's going on. And yet the social boundaries in those churches are often so high and rigid that we're just like, if you're a woman called to ordained ministry, if you're LGBTQ, if you're left of the previous pope, you're not going to work. And then on the other end of the spectrum, churches where everyone's welcome, and yet you go and often there's a sense of we don't know what we're for. We're ashamed of talking about Jesus. Because we're that sort of cultural despisers of religious thing. We're Christians, but we don't want to talk about the particularity of the gospel. We don't want to talk about our lives being changed. We don't talk about our stuff. Happy to talk about social justice, but we actually don't want to do anything about it. We talk good talk over our wine, but we're certainly not going to talk about our own sin personally. And so we're like, why can't we have a church that's Wesleyan, basically. Or, it's not, it's Jesus, basically. It's just Jesus, right? Like, social and personal. And so, well, we could do that. So that was our proposal. And we asked the bishop, could we do that? We felt like one of the things we heard over and over again and experienced is like the loneliness in ministry. Mm-hmm. And it's just, ministry's hard by yourself. And so we said, we're really feeling we want to do this, we want to do this together as two elders, which is a very risky thing for the conference to put two young elders together when there are so many churches. Why would you put two together? We're just like, and we said it's going to cost us about $300,000 a year to run. We had this idea of starting sort of two churches within the same year, two sites, multi-site. It's going to cost us about $300,000. We both took salary cuts in this proposal to like minimum salary. And we said, it's going to cost $300,000. And Bishop Jung's, this district superintendent, was like, well, we'll think about it, And then we came back, and then we were able to raise some money from investors to the tune of about $90,000. And so we were able to sort of say, like, hey, we're really serious about this. And the cabinet, we were in this conversation for a couple 3 or 4 months, I think, how would this work? So it was a very honest, organic conversation. And then the bishop and the cabinet greenlighted it as a proposal. And so we started working in July 2009 and left our churches and started doing that together. In addition to sort of the evangelical inclusive, which I think are two sides of the same coin, right? Yes. Good news bearing and therefore inclusive. Yes. We thought we want to do worship that is liturgical, traditional in the sense that it has a connection to the people who come before us. So, like I said, we have the Eucharist, we have lay testimony, these strains of Methodism, but also to do it in a contemporary way. So we have a band, etc. And then to do that multi-sided kind of thing. So that's sort of the basic story of Urban Village, how it started.